How you doing, guys? Today I'm going to start to make the wiring harness for my Rugg tractor. Namely, got to get the battery wired to the switch to the starter, and then the rectifier back to the battery. Now, in full transparency, this is actually going to be the second take at making a wiring harness. You can see I have one here. I put the whole thing in. It worked really good, but there was just too many things that were bothering me. Number one, I snaked it through this hole. This hole's a little too small for two 10-gauge wires. So I'm going to have to, and I didn't have a grommet here or nothing, and it was just a nightmare. So I'm going to have to open that up a little bit with a file, unfortunately, so that way I can put a little protection around the wires as they pass through the frame. Then when it got to back here to the battery with the fuses and everything, it just looked like shit. I apologize. I did keep my ground strap. This was the only wire that actually came out good, and it works really well. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to just go ahead and remake a wiring harness for this thing. Because the one I had, you can just, I got red wire, black wire, there's couplers, it's just garbage. The whole thing was garbage. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. So let's dive right back into it and let's get this done. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make the main wire, the power wire that goes from the switch through the frame and over to the starter. That's the longest wire out of them all. So I want to go ahead and make that first, and I'll show you how I make that in just a second.
The first thing I did was I went ahead and roughly measured the length of wire that I need. I just took my razor knife and just went around the sheath to break that off. The next thing is I got the eyelets that I needed, and I cut the plastic stupidity that they have on them off, because that, to me, that's like the worst looking thing. Now I could go ahead and crimp these on and everything should be just fine, but I am going to go ahead and solder all the ends on. I got some heat shrink tubing. I'm going to put the heat shrink over the edges, so everything will be just really, real nice. Everything will be nice and clean when it's all done. I'll tin the end of the wire. I'll tin a little bit of this. Then I'll crimp it down and then just go ahead and solder it all together, so we have a good solid connection. This eyelet will go to the battery, and the other eyelet is around, oh, here it is, and that's the eyelet for the 3/8 bolt on the seat stand. So let me go ahead and clean up the tip of my soldering pencil here because it is pretty grody, and we'll get to soldering this together.
Okay, so the first upgrade to my original wiring harness is I just took a rat tail file and I just gingerly opened up the hole that was right here in the frame and dropped this rubber grommet in there. Now the wires are fairly tight in that grommet, but with a little WD-40, once I get it all situated, I'll be able to slide them right through. So, all right, that's number one. I'm gonna get some air. I got my air gun to blow away all the chips, and then the next thing we're gonna do is start laying out where the heck we're gonna send that wire all the way over to the starter. I did all what I'm about to tell you on my first wiring harness attempt, but just so I have it all here, all the ends are going to be soldered to the wire. None of it's going to be crimped. We're going to have heat shrink over the ends so that way it looks nice and clean. And as you could probably tell from this, I cut the plastic right off. Get that? I hate that when people crimp that stuff on and you have that crimped piece of plastic. It looks ridiculous. At least that's the way I look at it. So that is gone. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll tin the wire real quick. I'll put the end on, heat the whole thing up, drop some solder. So every end will be nicely, solidly mounted, and, we shouldn't have any issues there. And there it is. I did hit the solder joint itself with a file just to smooth it all out, make sure there's no sharp edges. That way when the heat shrink kind of shrinks down on it, it doesn't split it open or anything to that effect. But nice, clean, hit it with a little Scotch-Brite. Beautiful. All right, let me get that done. Let's see what length we need here. I know at first sight this might not look the best, but really it's not bad because the hood is here, so you don't even see any of this. But in general, everything is soldered, heat shrinked. We got it all tightened down. We got the grommet right there where it goes through the frame. The wiring then goes, it's up inside the frame all the way across, goes up and over this this deck bolt. There is a couple wire ties in there to keep it all nice and tight. Goes over the strap, and then what this is just a wire tie to keep the wires from falling out of the grommet that I have. Let's see, where is the grommet? There's the grommet right there, which goes back through the frame, and these wires come through. Now, one of these wires will go to the positive side of the battery. The other wire will go to the starter lug. So right now I'm trying to figure out where I want to put my inline fuses, because the first go around they were bad. Let's just leave it at that. That's why I ripped it out. All right, let me do some planning and we'll get back to it. So I got the starter wire, or the wire for the starter, in place. This is the rectifier, comes down. They're just wire tied together. It goes behind the back post of the transmission, underneath the transmission. Comes out right here, both wires. Goes behind the battery. Let me get, you can see the wire. Whoop, there's the wires. And then they come out through the grommets in this frame. This one, actually, this wire here is for the rectifier. This wire is going to be the starter wire from the switch to the battery. I'm just going to be putting in this inline fuse in there, but you can see how much, well, you didn't see what it looked like before. It was just a total mess, but this is all nice and clean. Got grommets. It runs down, one wire runs down the frame rail, then runs to the starter. The other wire comes down the frame rail and comes out here for the battery. And then there's a single wire that goes from the rectifier over, under, and then we'll go up to the positive side of the battery. And that's what I'm working on right now. So almost done, almost done. It looks a lot better, looks a lot cleaner, blends in real nice. So let's continue to solder. Okay, let's dive in and see what we got. So we got the two positive side battery cables. We have the negative right here. They come up out of the frame, go up and around. I have a wire tie to keep that up. And then I have my two fuses. I have a 3 amp fuse on the rectifier, and I have a 30 amp fuse on the starter. I've already hit the starter, made sure everything worked. I haven't started up. I didn't start the tractor on the electric starter, but I did kick it over, make sure that it's not going to snap any fuses. But the wiring is pretty darn complete, and I think fairly clean for something that's not supposed to have any wiring. So with that, next up is to make the battery hold down. I got some 1024 threaded rod. I'm going to cut it and get the brace into place, and I also have like a little cable clamp down in there that I'm going to bolt to the bottom of the battery tray to hold the wires from the rectifier and the actual starter motor in place. So let me go ahead and measure up, start doing some cutting. All right, well, it's a little late. I can't really start this thing up and drive it around a little bit, but that's for tomorrow. Got the hood back on, got the steering wheel back on, locked down the engine plate, batteries all installed with the hold down bracket. I just have the wires disconnected. There shouldn't be any problems, but just for right now, I'm not going to get involved with that. Yeah, man, with that bigger flywheel, that 1/2 inch taller of this motor compared to the original, really don't have any room underneath there. There shouldn't be any problems. If I have to, I can always turn the engine deck down one turn on the crank, but that's right where I want to leave it, because it's the deck and the top of the frame rail are level, so that way I can get the, put a little piece of tin foil underneath this and dump the oil out of the motor when I need to. I had to do that trick with the tin foil. Even with the original engine, it just exited off this side of the engine itself. In actuality, it's actually this is actually in a better placement than that, because if you see right here, there's a bolt. The old exit oil exit came right over the top of this bolt. And that's how they were originally from the factory, or from the Rugg factory on the other side. The oil drain was actually on this bolt. It happens to be underneath this starter. So this setup is actually easier to drain oil. And I even have a video on draining oil out of a Rugg. So that's a plus. Everything else looks really good. I mean, I think the switch is kind of hidden in there. You really can't tell that it's there, to be honest. And when you look at for the wires, you barely can see them. You know, maybe I might take this and tuck it in a little bit, but I want to keep it away from the exhaust, or as far away from the exhaust as I can. Other than that, everything else looks to be okay. All right, guys. Once the sun comes up, we'll roll her outside and we'll go through the diagnostic test. And there it is, guys. The repower, or the conversion, is complete, however you want to define it. I think it came out pretty good. I think the battery looks pretty original, as well as the switch. I think that looks pretty good. I don't think that really sticks out like a sore thumb or anything to that effect, especially with this, you know, especially like the battery. I think the battery actually looks pretty good. I just shot the little tray with some green paint, as well as the top bar piece there, so that all looks pretty good. The wiring looks clean. I think the grommet runs through the frame. Actually, the wires come out the back right there. There's another grommet. That doesn't look so good, that red to black, but when you stand in, even from here, can't even really see it. So that all looks good. And then I just have these unhooked for now because I don't want to keep the battery connected. But I'm going to go ahead and connect the battery up and take it for one final ride on this video series. It should be up and ready to go for the spring. As you can see, the leaves are down, so it's coming to an end for this year. But I think it looks pretty darn good. All right, let's get it running. Hey, how you doing?
Looking at that sound.
Oh yeah.
Sounds good.
Thank you. would call that darn near perfect. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and if you would, please leave a comment below. I hope to see you on the next video, and you have a great day.